Testing, testing, making sure the sound is here. How are you guys? Testing, testing, making sure the sound is here. How are you guys? All good. You always have to check. How are you guys? How are you? Hey, pretty people, welcome back to Pretty Politico, where we break down the chaos of pop culture with strategy, logic, and of course, a little bit of necessary side eye. I'm your host, Nico Nicole, and this is Politickin with Nico. Before we dive in, let's handle some house cleaning. Make sure you follow me on all platforms: TikTok, Blue Sky, and right here on YouTube. If you haven't hit that like button, please do now. The algorithm tells you that you want more of this content, and it helps others like us to find one another. Now, if you're here, that means you're a logical, strategic thinker, not someone who is easily swayed by the emotions of yourself or others. You have to have that little twinge of logic. We analyze, we process, and we move accordingly. So let's get into it. We're gonna start here. We're gonna start here. The king, the headlines went down this week in the DMs. Like, it was crazy. There was so much tweeting back and forth, so much pro Trump jargon that kind of took over the atmosphere of the media sphere. So Trump apparently was crowned king of New York for his toll reversal. I don't know if you know, I'm a Jersey girl, but in Jersey, New York area, there's been this congestion toll thing that's going on. So the White House official ex Twitter account basically knighted Trump after he got New York's congestion pricing plan shut down. This plan was supposed to change vehicles for entering Manhattan's central business district, helping fund public transit. But with Trump's intervention, it axed it. And now his base is eating it up like he's some kind of modern day Robin Hood. But let's be clear, who really benefits from this move? Working class New Yorkers or the billionaires who already run the city? Because at the end of the day, it is very important that those congestion issues are moderated for the people who live in New York City. Because if you're a Jersey, New York girl, you know how that congestion can be. But what I will say, it did put a lot of pressure on the MTA. And during that week where the congestion tolls were in play, there was just so much holdups and delays of the train. So it's not a catch-all, this congestion plan. But I think it's the issue is not the congestion plan. The issue is the cost of the congestion plan. And I mean, it's just astronomical. We were already paying $18 to get into New York City from Jersey. It doubled that basically. So I think that was where the contention came from and why people were really, really upset about this plan. But to King Trump because of it, I mean, I think that just was taking it a little bit too far. Speaking of taking things a little bit too far, I can't wait to show you guys this next clip. Enjoy. Golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, number one. Donald is coming to set you free, bringing the light for all to see. No more tunnels, no more fear. Trump Gaza is finally here. Trump Gaza shining bright. Golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, number one. Trump Gaza shining bright. Golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, number one. And there we have it. Trump Gaza, number one. Remember, I told you guys a few weeks back that Trump's plan was to turn Gaza into beachfront property. And it appears that the man is not playing, and he's full steam ahead. This is the vision for the future of Gaza and the Palestine people. But one thing that I did learn about the Palestinian people, because I've been doing a lot of research, I hadn't done much research before, because in my mind, I think as a Black American here in the States, I was just so focused on the struggles that we go through. And recently, I just took the time, like literally just took the real deep dive into the history of Israel, Palestine, because I never wanted to speak about it without more information. And what I do know is it's a very similar story to a lot of disenfranchised citizens around the world, global citizens. I think we all can relate to the story. It's a similar story in Sudan right now, similar story in Gaza. Of course, in America, we deal with that too, the American Indians. So it's basically people want this land because the land is beautiful. They want to um, expand on it and build things up. And these people really cherished their land. They were actually felt like they were one with the land, similar to the Native Americans who believed that they came here on a turtle's back and in America on a turtle's back, and that if they gifted mud and cooled the turtle's back with mud, the turtle would ride them away, and then the turtle would feed the sea, and the sea would feed the otters, and the otters would feed the grass, and so on, like a life cycle, and they would be able to be fed, and so they have a personal relationship with the earth. Similarly, the people of Palestine have a personal relationship with the earth. They're called the olive people. They grow these huge, beautiful olive trees. And what happened was Israel, just like a lot of colonized countries who want to take over, and they demolished those trees. They just like what happened to the Black Wall Street. If you know the history of that, those homes or those rich Black people that we always talk about are now highways. A lot of really beautiful Black communities are now highways in America, so that they destroy any historical references to it. Same thing with Gaza. A lot of the homes where the people live are now highway strips because they built these massive highways on top of the land that these people once built these beautiful olive trees on. And these people, unlike other places, um they are not leaving. They won't go. They can't be displaced. They keep coming back. They keep coming back. They keep coming back. A lot of times people do give up the fight and they just go, migrate to other parts of the world. The people of Palestine will not move. So that is kind of the beauty of it and why people are fighting so hard for them. But it's also sad because the way Netanyahu and Donald Trump and people of that caliber see the land. They just see the land from a drone view, and they see this beautiful property that they want to demolish, and that they see, as you can see, a golden city. So let's talk about this little AI generated scandal that Trump is going through. So this is an AI deep fake, if you haven't noticed. To me, it's just wild. And this week, fake Trump clips flooded social media with some news falsely linking him to statements about Gaza. Meanwhile, protests are growing in response to U.S. foreign policy. Students, activists, and even lawmakers are calling for an end to the funding Israel's military actions, because they feel like, similar to what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, they feel like Israel is the aggressor and they are the ones that need to cease fire on the Palestinian people. But Trump doesn't see it that way. He sees it as these people are in a demolition zone, and this is stuff I've heard come out of his own mouth, and he's shocked that they won't leave the area. So at this point, it's clear the information is at war with one another. Media outlets are all pointing the finger at one another regarding the Gaza Israel but dynamic. But people have to stay vigilant. They have to do their fact checking and don't fall for the AI generated madness. This just reminds me that Trump also is doing something called the gold card, where it's $5 million to get your citizenship. No if, ands, or but about it. If you can pay $5 million, you get a gold card of a kind of membership for the USA. So as you can see, Trump is already dealing with this as if this is the golden era, is what he's calling it, which is similar to the Gilded Era. And if you know anything about the Gilded Era is when the rich got really rich. That's why we have the Carnegie Mellons and the Vanderbilts and things like that was during the Gilded Era. They were really, really rich. Meanwhile, the poor were living in tenements, and they were living all in one. You know, think about the pictures with the people outside their windows with the laundry on their out of their porch and things like that. Think of Rosita Marina, I forget the a West Side Story, that kind of lifestyle. That's how people were living back then. Meanwhile, the rich were just living the high life. They were going to operas, traveling the world, eating good. And so for the rich, it was a really good time. But for the poor, it was a really devastating time for people. There was a lot of disease and sickness, and not a lot of help to get out of their stature in life. It's kind of like a caste system. What they were born into, they were stuck into. So Trump is also to feed this, and because he knows that's coming because of the Gilded Era, he kind of can lean back on history. What I will say about Trump is he is a historian in a sense. He looks at things and he reads these books, or at least he has somebody tell him these stories of those eras, because he's moving very similarly to the Gilded Era, and he wants to usurp some of that depression that they went through in the Gilded Era, the poor, by giving this $5,000 stimulus, which will all go back to the economy, by the way, because if you give to people, they usually will spend it. And that money will be spent really quickly. So I do think it's kind of a soften it's kind of to soften the ease of transition from social support to social slavery, because eventually he wants to use that money to help people, who he's laying off right now, as you see these mass layoffs. But then eventually those people are going to go back to work, and people are going to be able to work these people to the bone, because people are going to be in dire need of work, in dire need of money. So it's kind of like a delayed gratification. um it's like of hurt, in a sense. They're getting delayed gratification by getting this $5,000, but in the end, they're all gonna be broke and hurting, just like in the Gilded Era. If you are into history and a history buff like I am, I would suggest you going to look up a PBS documentary on the Gilded Era. I might post it here on my community tab later today if I remember. This leads me to just all this information with the Trump being knighted king and the Trump Gaza of it all. It reminds me of something Steve Bannon said, and I mentioned this last week as well, about muzzle velocity. That's what's going on here when you see these plane crashes and things like that. So I looked into the transportation sector of government to see what's going on. And the transportation secretary did say that he's looking to boost aviation traffic control staffing, because he and others like myself are thinking, what is up with all these crashes? You guys know in the last 2 months, we've seen, it seems like this is an approximate 27 more plane crashes than we've had in the previous 3 years combined. That's what I've heard from Roland Martin. I have to look up that number, because in relation to what the Google says, and we know how just Googling can be, it says it's kind of just for January, it's similar to last January 2023. But from what Roland Martin said was we had 27 more plane crashes in the last 2 months than we've had in the previous 3 years. That's including January and February, but Google didn't include February's. So all I know is something is not right. From mechanical failures to potential cyber threats, aviation is looking real shaky right now. Is it deregulation, a staffing crisis, or something more sinister? Stay tuned, because I'll be digging deeper into this. To me, it feels like the sky is falling and America is on a war path, and that's what we are seeing. When that crash in Brazil happened right after the Brazilian president um, condemned Trump, that to me was a sign of war. In addition to this, Secretary Duffy, who is the Secretary of Transportation, Aviation Transportation, also said, sorry, his name is Secretary Duff. I just added the Duffy, I don't know why. But Secretary Duff says that um He believes that pilot error is at play in plane incidents. He believes private jet that private jet that taxed in front of the Southwest plane recently, the one right after this crash that's on the scene. You have the Air Canada. You know, Canada's also going toe to toe with Trump, even though they kind of have backslid. They kind of do a shuffle. They come out strong and then they backslide the next day. Canada, very Canadian of them, and so this thing happened shortly after their big disagreements on tariffs. So I look into all of that stuff. But anyway, Secretary Duff said that pilot error is at play in a lot of these plane incidents. He believes that we need an updated and we need to update this antiquated aviation system and insert Elon Musk. Elon, the savior of all things, says that he and SpaceX and Starlink will be more than happy to help with aviation. I think that's a lot of power for this man. He has the United States president. He has the Doge in our financials right now, and now he's going to get the skies. It's a lot of power for one man. So, but that's what they said. They said Elon Musk is thinking about bringing in SpaceX and Starlink to help with the antiquated aviation systems. The FAA is really short on controllers and struggles to replace those who need to leave. There is a 20% washout of people who are ready and willing to already leave the job. Because what I understand from a lot of aviationers, they're saying that this is a really high stress job. Accelerating, so Secretary Duffy said we need to learn how to accelerate the process and we need to encourage young people to apply for air traffic controller instructors. And because most of the air traffic controller instructors that are available are retired instructors that are kind of outdated in what's going on in today's current climate of air trafficking controlling. So through January, what I did find, like I told you guys earlier, it shows that the data in general falling out of the air incidents in the US from 2005 to 2024, despite a significant increase in the overall number of flights over this period, it shows that the figure for January 2025 was 52, was lower than it was in January of last year, which was 58. And in January 2023, it was a little bit higher at 70. So the data actually shows that there's a decrease in plane falling out of the sky. But what I will say is that's fine. There can be a decrease in plane activities falling, but it seems like the crashes that are happening now are more methodical and they are aligned with the adversary of Donald J. Trump. That's what I will say, and that's what I'll pin out. Take that how you want. Whether it's more or less, the media is picking it up more, and the attacks seem more poignant because they seem more intentional in relation to his adversaries or who he deems as adversaries. So maybe they're just reporting more. Hence, this muzzle velocity theory that Steve Bannon talks about, that I talked to you guys and explained about last week. So don't forget, if you guys want to learn more about muzzle velocity, check out last week's podcast, and I explained exactly what Steve Bannon says about it. I believe I even included a clip on what he said about it. Let's move on. There is a new world order at hand that I mentioned. So Elon, not what Kanye say. One man should not have all this power, and that's exactly what you see right now. You see Elon, and to me, it feels like a new world order. And Elon doesn't have just the power; he has the government, even though he's not a government agent. So he right now has Doge oversight and he's a team leader of the Doge oversight. He calls himself tech support. Team leader Marjorie Taylor Greene said that DOJ put out a report that Elon isn't an employee at all. He is simply tech support, so we shouldn't take him, you know, as being this huge part of the government, and that he is simply working on behalf of Donald Trump as a consultant to Doge into the government agencies that Donald Trump puts him in charge of. Similarly to HR, that's what it sounds like, or an auditor, so to speak. But they've been saying he's cleaning up things, so someone is lying. Like when I watch, I love news, I love all of it. So when I watch conservative stations, they say he's cleaning up house, he's cutting the fat, he's rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. Opposers say he has too much access to all of our sensitive information. And he's just saying that he's a part of the Office of Personal Management and that Doge told him to be a part of Office of Personal Management, meaning Donald Trump gave Doge permission to allow Elon Musk to run Doge, which effectively makes him the boss of the Office of Personal Management. So with that power, Elon sent out a tweet and changed the entire trajectory of the voting cabinet. He made the decision to decide to lay off hundreds of federal employees from USAID. And as of today, I'd heard he's now going after the National Agency of Oceanic, and where they oversee the health of our oceans. So this is getting really interesting, and we know this is a guy who has strong ties to apartheid South Africa. He has stated that he's been in America for 22 years and he no longer has ties, but one of the first things Donald Trump did when he came into office was give refugee programs to the South African people. And this is in part because places like Liberia have decided to take back their power, reclaim their time, and take back their land, and say that they can no longer have these white-only communities. And so as an olive branch, ironically, we talked about olives in Gaza section, as an olive branch, Elon and Donald Trump have extended their offer to allow refugees from South Africa, white refugees from South Africa, to come here to the United States. But in an interview with South Africans, they said they're not leaving. They consider South Africa their home. They're happy there. And while they appreciate Donald Trump's offer, they do not think it's necessary that they leave their home to come to America, especially with the state of America right now. So I watched all this different kind of media. I watched BBC, I watched African news, and these are the things that the South Africans says. They see what's going on in America, but they're like, thanks, but no thanks. So we don't know if they may need it soon, and I'm sure if the time comes and they need it, and Trump is still in office, they'll be able to take heed to that opportunity to come here. But we may be the ones running over there soon, it seems. So next up, who is the real king of America right now? This is my thought. Oh, I thought I had the video, but I don't. It's okay. On my TikTok, I have a video of this with a lot of different clips. So you guys go check that out on my TikTok page. Same name, pretty.politico. Go check it out. It's a really cool video. But I do have just the picture. To me, in my mind, this is similar to this guy, Trump, right? So the guy with the black hair, that's clearly Elon. This guy walking out, that's clearly Trump. If you guys don't know The Emperor's New Clothes, I implore you to go look up the meaning of it on Google. I'm not going to get too much into it. I just thought it was a funny take. And similar to this guy, Zelensky says Trump is in a bubble of disinformation. That's what he feels. So he's in a bubble of disinformation right now. And I think we can see that loud and clear, especially when we had this just last week. There's been so much news. Do you guys remember this from last week? I wanted to talk to you guys about this last week. I don't know if I already did in my last video, but if I didn't, I just wanted to reiterate that the baby X told Donald Trump that you're not the president, you need to go away. He also told Donald Trump, I want you to shut your mouth. There seems to be a conflict of interest here. And who really has the power? And it's also funny because I put this little clip here. They said Elon's going anywhere in public is the same equivalent to the guy in the Titanic who was like, I have a child. I have a child. Let me on the boat. And like push the mom away, just grab some random child. Just self-interest. He's a self-interested person. That's why he's lugging around poor baby X. But enough with the children. I try not to go in on children too much, but I just thought that was funny. But I will say, in Donald Trump's defense, because I try to be bipartisan. I try. Um, people are saying that Baby X was not talking to Donald Trump, but rather he was talking to a journalist in the room. So if you look at his eyes, he could be talking to Trump, but he could be talking to somebody right behind Trump. And I watched the clip and I laughed. I watched it live, not just the clip. I was watching it as it was happening. And I just laughed when I saw it. And I was like, wait, is he talking like that to Donald Trump? Either way, the behavior and uh I think actually the next clip will sum it up perfectly.
Stood over Donald Trump in the White House today, thereby delivering a picture of presidential subservience, the likes of which we have never seen, the most powerless image of a president of the United States ever created by a camera. There it is. In that shot, Elon Musk is doing everything he possibly can to tell the world, without saying a word, that Donald Trump is not the boss of me. Donald Trump is the boss of the other adults in that shot, Stephen Miller and Will Scharf, and that's why they are following Donald Trump's lead on the dress code for the Oval Office, which is the same dress code that has existed for every
A picture of subservience. I couldn't have said it better myself. And I think what we see, and we'll get into this a little in just a little bit, actually, the Zelensky, Donald Trump, Putin of it all, the thing that happened today, the big crescendo. We'll get into that. But what I think this represents, let me go here. What can I show you guys? Just want to go to the next track. Oh, there it goes. So what I think this picture essentially represents is what we're seeing now. I think because he's been so kind of humiliated with this, you know, turn of power. We have this image here with Time, who, Donald Trump despises Time. And then we have this image here, with baby X. And then we have this picture here, which we'll get into. And then we have this picture here, of course, right? Which we'll get into. We have these pictures of power where Elon seems to be the one that has
stood over Donald Trump in the White House today,
what's happening here,
thereby
and
delivering
it kind of puts Donald Trump in a situation where it looks like he is subservient to Elon. So I think this aggression that we see that he's showing with Zelensky is a kind of a precursor for what we're seeing. It's a foreshadowing of sorts. So this is the beginning, because this happened about 2 weeks ago. Because if I remember, the last live I did with you guys was on the 7th, and this happened around Valentine's Day week, right? So this is about Valentine's. And then we have the tech support thing the week after that, around the 20th, right? And then now we have this blow up with Zelensky on the 28th. So it's just been a progression of like him being undermined. And I think that was the blow up we saw today of him still trying to exert some kind of power. And for me, this will be Trump's legacy. After Trump is gone, one of the things I'm going to remember is the cowardice of people who went along. That is by Richard Primus I found him on Blue Sky. So for me, Trump's administration, he's just now firing unnecessary staff. Like, he recently got rid of the nuclear safety specialist and had to unfire them, but they can't find them now that their emails and their information has been deactivated. this administration shows a lot of incompetence. And I have a clip where Donald Trump says he used to use the word incompetence, but he doesn't use that word anymore. He only uses the word stupid because that's what people are, stupid. And I think, he said he went to Ivy League school, so he doesn't use that word anymore. Let me see if I can find it. I was gonna use a music clip earlier, and that was one of the clips for the picture. Let me see if I can find it. Um I don't see it here. But he was like, I went to Ivy League. Did I use it? Let me see. Recent. No, I don't have it here. But if I find it next time, I'll show you guys. He was like, I have a Ivy League degree. He's like, I like the word stupid, but I don't call them stupid anymore. He said I only call them dumb, because he said I think that dumb is a better word for them. He's like, because if you say incompetent, it sounds too smart. And I think really, if that's the case, he's kind of looking like the dumb one. And what I'm feeling is that the oligarchy is looming. And I put a video on this on my YouTube as well. I have a YouTube short with Bernie, which is actually shadow banned right now. So I would implore you guys to go like that video, share that video, so we can kind of get that out of the shadow ban. And as Bernie talks about, there's the oligarchy pending upon us, and I really feel that they are looming. People are calling anyone with some common sense a TDS. I watch extreme news, right wing, really extreme news with Steve Bannon. Has his own TV show on, I think it's American Nation or News Nation, something like that. And then I watch really left, and then I watch international, and I try to file somewhere in the middle. That's why you're here too, because you're just like that. So, but yeah, they're calling anyone with some sense TDS, Trump deranged syndrome. They are polarizing anyone with common sense and cutting off anyone who opposes them. They're reframing and they're villainizing things that shouldn't be villainized. And because of this, there has been a mass pushback. 21 Doge staffers resigned, saying they won't help dismantle public services, as Elon takes a sledgehammer and, as you can see, a chainsaw literally to the Democratic constitution that we have. Elon Musk, Kevin O'Leary says that they are cutting the fat. Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary said, cut deeper and harder when you're cutting the fat like a chicken. And that's exactly what we're seeing with corporate layoffs. Like what we see usually with corporate layoffs, they're doing with that with the government right now. But here's the difference. Smart leaders cut to waste in order to improve efficiency. Elon Musk, he's just blindly firing people, not even knowing what they do. If you don't understand the system you're trimming, you end up destroying. You're not trimming it, you're destroying it, Elon. Well, now the power to the people, they are taking action and they are leaving. And as you can see here, I'm going to go through this slide really quick. You have, just use my mouse. Okay, that's better. So that's it. This is the story. Oh, see, this is what I'm talking about. It's supposed to be a whole slideshow, guys, but maybe they don't want you to see it. But right here, I had the resignation letter, and I also had some of the things that some of the staffers said, but the algorithm. So I'm not going to dwell on that one. Let's move on. So we talked about Elon a lot here, but we're going to just keep on him a little bit more. So Elon mentioned that he's already saved America $10 million. He talked about, during this meeting, they had an exclusive interview with Hannity. Of course, Hannity's like their favorite guy, of course, on Fox News. It was actually really entertaining to watch. I enjoyed it. But you guys know I'm one of those people. I enjoy things I'm not supposed to enjoy, and I completely had a good time watching it. They banter off each other. They for sure have a strong they totally have a bromance going on. He talked about Elon talked about that the day of the assassination is when he decided to make his endorsement. He actually said, I was planning on doing it well before that, but that kind of solidified it for him. So the media says that there's a smear campaign and that he's against the Constitution. Elon denies that. Trump adamantly denies that. They talked about Trump talks about biased media like AP, CBS, and MSNBC, but we see what happened recently with MSNBC and Joy Reid, so he's cutting that fat too, apparently, and putting into place people that he knows will tell the story the way he wants to spin it. This is why on Twitter, I'm on Blue Sky, not on Twitter, sorry guys. On Blue Sky and also on my TikTok, I told you guys that what I'm asking for you, my ask for this week is that you really engulf yourself in international news. And if you can find printed paper, read that as well. But it doesn't have to be printed necessarily, but just sign up for international news. Like something is even as simple as BBC. You'll see there's just completely different news. Australian news, Sky News. Just look at stuff outside of the American bubble. That way, even Democracy Now, things like that that aren't so, you know, saturated by Donald Trump and his cronies. But what Elon says is he feels that AP, CBS, MEC, MSNBC, and all of these people are guilty of what they are accusing him and Trump on. That they are the ones spinning the stories, that they have it the wrong idea because all he's trying to do is cut the fat. That's how he feels. And he feels like he's doing a great service for the American people. Meanwhile, the AP who won't, and the reason they're mad at AP, CBS, and MSNBC, and particularly AP, is because they won't change the Gulf of America the Gulf the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. So they feel pretty slighted by that, even though because Google has already updated the system and put it in there as Gulf of America, so they feel like the whole world should follow suit. But from what I hear, Mexico is actually suing the Google because it should never have been Gulf of the United States or America. That's how Mexico feels. And so Elon, with that in mind, feels like the media is the one spinning the story and they are the guilty ones. He feels like they are not moving with competence and caring. He says when you move with competence and care, you get a better deal. Basically saying that they can cut a lot of bills in half if they negotiate better with the world leaders, and that's all they're trying to do. But they're making it seem like they're in bed with a dictator. I think he's implying that he's not in bed with Putin, but really, I ain't gonna go there. But the proof is in the pudding. Actions speak louder than words. So he said caring, not the art of the deal, he said is the most important. Caring about what you're doing is more important than the art of the deal. He said the American people have to be getting a better deal in order for them to make the deal. He said Boeing is not making plans. He said, for example, he's used as an example. He said, for example, if Boeing um airlines are not making plans as fast, he says it is Elon's job. This is what Trump and Elon were saying. Elon said this. He said, if Boeing is not making plans as fast as we should, we are going to fix it. And Trump then replied and said, I'm going to send Elon in to fix it. And he also said the same thing with the IRS tax. He said, we want to do external tax, not internal tax. And I'm going to send Elon in to fix it. And that leads me to this right here. As you can see, this is another, oops. That is strange. Okay, so as you can see here, I guess I mixed up the slides, guys. So that's probably, no, that's not what happened. This is strange, but this one actually was going to go into an article about the external revenue, what is proposed, and collecting the tariffs and what it can mean for you. It was a slideshow about that. But as you can see, again, the algorithm, they really don't want us talking about this stuff, especially we have the new FBI director, which we'll get into. So he could be playing with the algorithm right now, which I don't mind. I'm still gonna report the news as best I could. So, yeah, that's what this slideshow was. This slideshow was actual a screenshot of the article of this article, and this particular one was supposed to be screenshots of the resignation letter. So they're cool with you seeing the title, but they don't want you to get into the meat and potatoes of the article, because the inside the article say something completely different. So when you guys get a chance, take it upon yourself and go into the articles and look it up yourself. I can also post this on a community tab because I already have the screenshots for them, so I might just do that later, just post the actual article. I believe I already posted this article on the community tab, so if you guys want to see the full screenshots that I was trying to show you today, you can go on my community tab and watch and read it yourself, because it's already there. But this one here, I'll add this to the community tab as well later today. Just got to put a little to-do list for myself. So, all right, let's just jump into this just a little bit, because I did talk about this. I did write a few notes about it. I said, based on who's paying, who's really paying for America right now. We're on an economy watch. Americans paid 27 billion in import and exports under Trump's last term. Who benefited? Billionaires with tax cuts. Who struggled? The working people. Eggs are up 63%. And why, do you ask? Because the bird flu crisis? Oh, and Trump's administration just cut the CDC division who tracked that? He just cut the division who tracks the bird flu. Veterans are losing care. There's a story going around right now about a Bronx VA, a man in a Bronx VA hospital in AOC's district just had massive layoffs. These are people who serve this country, and they're getting tossed aside like nothing. The economy ain't just numbers. It's policy, decision, hitting real people in real time, and it's going to hit the same people that voted and loved him, like that veteran. And that's the sad part, because I don't care who you voted for. I have a heart and I care about people. And I don't like the things that are going to happen to we the people. And so I just pray for our sake that he comes through with some of those promises that he gave in regards to the people, his MAGA people, that he said he was going to cut some prices. Like he said, it's too soon to tell right now. So I'm going to give the man a benefit of doubt. He's only been there for 2 months. I was looking at um the White House today, and there's an image, and I was going to screenshot it, but I didn't have time before I hopped on this live. But there's a screenshot of a moving van outside of the White House, and it just hit me like like a ton of bricks. And I said, this man hasn't even fully moved in yet. He's only been there a month and a half, and he's moving with the speed of light. And we'll get to this, and that's because of Project 2025. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the reality is, he's brand spanking new. I know this is like really his second term, which he feels like should be his third term, because the second was technically stolen. That's how he feels. He feels like that Biden term was his. So he coming in with a different kind of vengeance. And he's moving really fast. But so far, the payoff hasn't been to the American MAGA people, his constituents. So I'm wondering when the MAGA people will get what they want, because I'm watching radical right-wing news, and Steve Bannon and the rich, they're cheering. They're so happy. They're saying he's so masculine. He's this, he's that. It's just like they're very happy with how he's moving. But then on the other flip, when you look at the poor rural town MAGAites, they are really sad. They are really down. They're really disappointed. They're storming their town hall meetings, and they're just really unhappy. But the thing is, they put this man in power. He has all the power, so much so that he has the Supreme Court. There is a 6-3 majority in terms of the impact of Supreme Court conservative super majority party. This is one of the biggest majorities that we've ever seen in the Supreme Court. So he aligned himself very well. So Trump's goal in all of this is to sign executive orders so that they can go to the highest courts. He's trying to get the Supreme Court because he has power over them. In a 9-0 decision, they would not allow him to overturn unilaterally this recent USAID thing, which was a beautiful thing. Because had they done that, it would have kind of gave us a little bit of it would have helped made us lose a little bit of hope in the American dream essentially. But because they upheld that, it kind of gave us a little bit of hope that they will be able to push back from Trump from time to time, because they are the most powerful um they are the most powerful people in the world right now, because they can determine what can be pushed through, what executive orders can be pushed through, and what has to have a little bit of a pause. And if the judge doesn't follow what he wants, he has the ability to get rid of justices that he, just like he did last time. So I think a lot of the Republican justices are really scared to lose their standing. But at a certain point, you have to have a moral compass. So we'll see how this plays. There was supposed to be a decision today that he made at 12 o'clock. I didn't look it up. Let me see. I'm going to look it up in real time. Supreme Court, Trump, let's see. Nothing yet. Groups urge Supreme Court to keep deadline for USAID to pay $2 billion, because they're supposed to pay out that. Um, U.S. Supreme Court Robert pauses judge's order on Trump's foreign aid distribution. So that's the last ruling, but apparently they were supposed to uphold that ruling, but apparently looks like they might have delayed that 6 hours ago. What is the ruling? Court rules against Trump's appeal on birthright citizens. So that was a big thing, that they pushed back on birthrights. Here's where Trump and Musk are winning and losing in court. This is just today as of 12. An appeals court ruled Friday that President Trump's executive order limiting birthright citizenship must remain paused, denying an appeal by the Trump administration, according to multiple reports. The latest in a string of court rulings involving Trump and cost-cutting czar Elon Musk's sweep changing across the federal government. That's good news. That's good news. So that is a beautiful thing, because it kind of keeps us, believing in the American justice system, that they have some pushback, that they have some resolve, that they have some backbone, and that we're not going to be this dictatorship. So that is very hopeful and very important, especially when there is a super majority of 6-3 with the Supreme Court, conservatives being the majority. Next up, let's talk about it. Speaking of that, this is what I was telling you guys. Same article, but with a new update. The one I have says Supreme Court pushbacks Trump and USAID case. The one I just read to you was courts pushing back on birthright citizenship. So that's two different things. We have them pushing back on birthright citizenship, and now we have them pushing back on the USAID case as well. Here's where Trump's winning and losing. And as you can see, the Supreme Court temporarily halted lower court ruling requiring Trump administration to unfreeze foreign aid. This one actually is the opposite. They actually backed Trump in this, and they ruled against him in the birthright citizen. So they ruled against him in the birthright appeal, stating that, I guess, Americans, if you're born here, you are American. But they agreed with him when it comes to USAID. So what it sounds like is USAID staff, I do know that they've been spending a lot of money abroad. Trump claims that they use Sesame characters and said that they pay the Sesame character $13 million for a Sesame Street show. He also mentioned that $2 million in gender reaffirming surgery was giving. And he mentioned that 28 million children were given money worldwide. This is one of the pro USAID people said that. And he also said, the pro USAID employee also mentioned that 5.6 million children worldwide were fed because of USAID. So those are important cuts that are now being so what I'm thinking is that 13 million for Sesame Street show wasn't just the show, it was also food and clothing and things like that, for a multitude of facilities across a multitude of cities, states, and countries. That's what I'm thinking that was. So maybe Sesame didn't just go to one place, they went to multiple places, to multiple children across multiple places in the world. That's what it sounds like. And I can imagine Elmo costs us a little bit of money. So yeah. USAID staff, they were given 15 minutes to pack up and clear their workstations. At this point, Doge, Elon Musk, and Trump have laid off 5% of the USAID staff, and as I told you, they are also now working on the Oceanic agency today, which means and make sure that the oceans are clean. They also originally got rid of the CDC as well. That was like day one. So all together with USAID staff, they got rid of 1,600 staff member. But Musk says if they don't slim down the government, it will go bankrupt. So he feels like he's just trimming the fat. Same thing like Kevin O'Leary says. You have to trim the chicken, fat off the chicken, you got to dig deep. And that's what they are clearly doing. So we have one win in terms of the U.S. birthright citizen. We have one loss in terms of the courts backing Trump for the USAID case, which only gave them 15 minutes to leave their workstations and effectively closing that facility. Next up, number of Americans filing unemployment benefit has risen to 242,000 people, the highest level in 3 months. And my question really is very simple. Where are all these people going? Where is all these people going? Especially with all the cuts that they're giving. It's gonna be an ish show. It's going to be an ish show. That's all I can say about that. Y'all can read this article too later. But when I had to just show y'all this before I hopped in, I saw it right before I hopped on. I said, oh, I gotta throw this in there to let y'all know this is the results. And as a result of this, people are pissed. If they don't have no jobs to go to, they don't have no money in their accounts. What you think they're gonna do? This is exactly what they're gonna do. And there we have it. This is what people gonna do. They ain't got nothing but time and opportunity on their hand and anger and resentment. So there are going to be ongoing protests in and around the country and might I add the world. Because these people ain't got nothing to do, especially with the USAID. They have people who are working internationally that are there. That's their jobs. Like I remember I used to work in international education and I went over to a particular country and I was working with the foreign agency, and as I was talking to them, they were one woman had just had a baby, and she was telling me, yeah, she's like, if I knew what I know now, because when you sign up for these government jobs, they're kind of like you're joining the military. You take an oath, which is why people are upset at Elon and Donald, because they didn't make Elon take an oath to the American country, as same as if like Trump. He had to take an oath. Same as Kash Patel. When you just saw him get sworn in, he had to take an oath to the American people. Elon never took an oath to the American people. So that's why people are upset. So he doesn't have any allegiance to the American people. He's just a consultant to Donald Trump. So with that, when I went over there, she was like, one thing I didn't realize is that if I had a baby, she had just had a baby. The baby was 8 months old. She had to leave her 8-month-old because she can't just bring him to another country. She had to do all the paperwork, send for him, and then her husband at the time has his own job. So she had to go back to America, have her baby, and then she had to be back at work like 6 weeks later, because that's all we get. And then she only got to know her baby for 6 weeks, and she was gone from her baby for 8 months. And she said she couldn't get out of that. She was literally in a contract for another 5 years. So obviously, I was like, when are you going to see your baby? She had like vacation here, 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there. And her goal and hope was that the husband brings the baby over to that country, but she couldn't promise that. Yeah, and she never, and she wasn't finished the paperwork to get the baby over to that country. So who knows how long the paperwork would take for her to get her child over there. It could take It was already 8 months when I had met her. The baby was 8 months old, and she had only seen her child for 6 weeks. Only 6 weeks knowing your child that you just gave birth to. This is what they're going through. They're giving up their lives to be government officials. And then to be rewarded like this, I'm telling you, it's really sad. So let's get to the elephant in the room. This is the elephant, the bear, the tree. This is everything. Okay? So Trump, Zelensky, and America's foreign policy flip. Donald Trump, if you guys remember last week, recently called Ukrainian President Zelensky a dictator and claimed that President Biden has been played. In response, Zelensky fired back, pointing out that Trump had never actively fought against Vladimir Putin. He said, "You don't know. You don't know, Trump. And you don't know how you react to Putin because he never keeps his promises. Putin, a ruthless leader and dictator, is responsible for mass killings, is driven by ambition to rebuild the Soviet empire." I implore you to go look up the Soviet empire and why Russia. You ever wonder why Russia's so big? There's a reason for that. They don't want just to take over Russia. They want global. You remember Pinky in the Brain? I'm trying to take over the world. So what are they going to do today, Brain? "Oh, Pinky, I'm going to take over the world." That is Vladimir Putin. He wants to take the world. He don't want just his little, well, not, I wouldn't call that little piece of land. He don't want that huge, massive piece of land that he already has. He wants it. He wants it all, rolling in the deep. He wants it all, baby. So, he is driven. Putin is a ruthless leader and a dictator responsible for mass killings, is driven by ambition to rebuild the Soviet empire, starting with Ukraine and extending to the Baltic states and Poland. If left unchecked, his expansions threatens not only Ukraine but also U.S. national security and the stability of its allies. Trump's position on Ukraine has changed. Trump has made it clear with Zelensky as of today that you either make the deal or we are out. Either make the deal or we are out. His stance suggests that under his leadership, U.S. support for Ukraine is conditional, possibly even expendable. Zelensky, however, pushed back, stating that the mere mineral deals are not enough to secure peace. He referenced Putin's past deception, saying, because Trump said to him, 3 days you would have had this war. You only lasted. And to that, Zelensky said, 3 days? I've heard that before from Putin. That was a direct jab at Trump's oversimplified approach to democracy. And it was also a clear representation that Putin is the one in Trump's ear. Because before Zelensky even allowed Trump to finish that sentence, he knew what Trump was going to say. He said, "Oh, yeah, 3 days, huh? That's exactly what Putin said to me." Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, a vocal Trump ally, and also the vice president, argued that such discussions shouldn't happen in the press. However, Zelensky attempted to educate Trump on Russia's history of breaking peace deals. His message was clear: diplomacy has been tried and failed. Vance took particular offense to this, but the reality remains you can't trust deals made with Putin. As long as Russia believes it's winning, negotiation is futile. Siding with adversaries instead of allies, where they do that at? Where they do that at? Come on, America, who are we? The debate over Ukraine highlights a deeper shift in the U.S. foreign policy, one that seems to prioritize adversaries over long-standing allies. Let me break it down for y'all a little bit, if y'all not clear on this. Our allies are Ukraine, Germany, France, Italy, and Britain. Do you hear me though? So all together, it's the US, Ukraine, Germany, France, Italy, and Britain. That's who our people are. Our adversaries are Russia, North Korea, Iran, and China. Do you hear me though? Russia, North Korea, Iran, and China are our adversaries. Worst case scenario, a U.S. withdrawal from NATO. Ukraine and Europe, which would be destabilized and then create a massive threat on global security. Such a move would also send dangerous signal to that Taiwan is next. And once Taiwan goes, then then North Korea would go, China would go, Japan would go, and they would then have to become allies with a bigger power like China, like North Korea, which would also be bad for us and NATO because all these small entities go far. You know that saying, alone you can go somewhere, but together you can go further. That's the saying. Like together the US can go further because we're not that big ourselves. We have very powerful military because of our advancement in technologies during the World War, but now you can't tell me China and Russia and all them people haven't caught up with the technologies. They have. So the stuff that worked in the 1940s will not work now. The stuff that worked in World War I will not work now. And that's the problem. So the administration appears more concerned with individual financial gain than with protecting NATO. And again, NATO includes Ukraine, Germany, France, Italy, Britain, the USA, and all these small countries like Taiwan and things like that, and Philippines and such and such. Okay? So the bigger picture is that the argument is the US is tired of footing the bill for world peace, especially when peace has yet to be achieved. At its core, it is about remaking the American world order. The US is pushing Europe to increase its own defense contributions, signaling frustration with America's role as the primary financial backer of global security. Basically, we ain't got it. The US don't have it. So that's what Trump is trying to say. However, one fact remains undeniable. Russia invaded Ukraine. Denying this reality goes against US national security and its interests. And so Trump continuously kissing Putin's ring has signaled to Putin and all of our adversaries, China and North Korea and Iran, that we are weak. If America abandons its allies now, it will be weaker when it inevitably has to confront China. Russia itself is self-interested. It will never side with the US in a global conflict. Bottom line, America's foreign policy is at a crossroad. The question will remain, it stand with its allies or retreat, leaving the world to be shaped by authoritarian regimes. Do you understand me? Because we are such a huge world leader, us and Britain together, that's how we're able to keep Russia off. That's how we're able to keep China off. But if we play these games too closely, we're at risk of losing that power, and that line will be pushed further and further. So that's my take on the Zelensky of it all today. I'll just give you off the script, off the cuff as well. I feel like, if you look at the picture I have up, I have that woman in the corner. She is the ambassador to Ukraine. I feel like that sums up our moods. That sums up everything of how I feel about this situation is out of control. I feel that if you look at the two Aryan men there, there's an alliance and allegiance to push that forward, that Yahtzee-ism of it all. I feel like that's loud and clear. And I feel like that's what we saw today. And I feel like watching the right wing news today and they're cheering Trump on and feeling like this was a great show of masculinity because these boys in a rural country in a rural South, they want to go to war. They ain't got nothing to do with themselves. They unemployed, they teeth falling out their mouth, and they want to do something with themselves. And war seems so appealing. They'll be able to feed their family, provide, and give them something to do. Because right now there's a lot of requirements to be a part of the military. But if you're going to war, they drop all them requirements. All you got to do is be able body. So it gives these men some honor. And I think that's what America misses. A lot of the right wing American men miss the honor of being somebody's. But at the end of the day, if you are somebody and then you come back home and they treat you like they did that Bronx veteran after 30 plus years of working at the VA hospital, and they fire you because they don't care about your body, they only care about the rich. Like I showed you in that first video, they care about that gold Gaza stripped. And that's the part that they're losing the plot on. So me, I'm like that lady with my hand on my head, shaking my head. But I want you guys, if you're listening to me, to, I'm going to say this time and time again, make sure this week you watch international news and get out of that American bubble. Next up, a little bit more foreign policy we're going to talk about. Macron, he also came before Zelensky got there, and he came to kind of soften the blow, as well as the British president. I didn't grab a picture of him before, but he also came as well. The British prime minister came, as well as this is the France prime minister. He warns Trump to be careful on Ukraine. He fact checks Trump at the White House, just like Zelensky did, but he has a little bit more power. If you look really closely, I wish, let me see if I could take the ticker off. But if you look really closely, look how hard Trump is grabbing this man's hand. That is pain in his voice. I mean, in his, that is pain in his like face. And that's why he grabs Trump here and back. At the top, there's a lot of small little aggressive things that you can see. And I've noticed that. And the real issue here is that there is the biggest reversal in U.S. foreign policy history. America built the Western world as free democratic alliance. Now, we're publicly siding with authoritarian leaders over democratically elected ones. This is a dream for China and Russia because if America steps back, Europe will have to look for new allies, and it probably will be Beijing. This ain't just about Ukraine. It's about what America stands for. It is about our legacy. And this is the things that are influencing the Trump campaign. I know you guys heard this time and time again, but I have to let you guys know we tried to tell y'all, and it's happening. We tried to tell y'all about Project 2025 and all the things that are influencing Trump. And even though he said, what is Project 2025? Never heard of it. Sorry. Just like he said the other day with Zelensky, he said, "Did I say he was a dictator? I don't believe I said that. I can't believe I said that." You said it. And you're associated with the Project 2025. And we told y'all. We tried to tell y'all. So Project 2025 is a comprehensive policy agenda developed by conservative organizations led by the Heritage Foundation, aiming to influence the next U.S. presidential administration. The initiative outlines extensive changes across various sectors of government and society. Here's a 6-point outline of its key proposals. Number one, government restructuring and centralization, plans to consolidate executive power by replacing nonpartisan civilian servants with political appointees, thereby aligning federal agencies more closely with the administration's agenda. Step two, economic and tax reform. Project 2021 proposes significant tax policy changes, including transitioning from an income tax to a consumption based tax system, which is the external tax, is what he always calls it, such as a national sales tax. Recommends reducing the corporate tax rate and simplifying individual tax income to two flat rates. Number three, social policies and civil rights. He advocates for the removal of protections against discriminations based on sexual orientation and gender identity, seeks to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI initiatives within federal programs, promoting a colorblind approach to governance. Number four, environmental and energy policies. Aims to reduce environmental regulations to favor fossil fuel production, including expanding offshore oil and natural gas drilling. Plans to significantly shrink the Environmental Protection Agency and eliminate offices responsible for environmental justice initiatives. Number five, Educational system overhaul. Recommends abolishing the Department of Education, transferring its programs to other agencies, or eliminating them entirely. Supports policies that would lead to increased state control over education and potentially defunding of public education initiatives. Lastly, number 6, national security and defense, proposing eliminating DEI programs within the Department of Defense and reinstating service members discharged for not complying with COVID-19 vaccination mandates. Emphasizes a hardline stance against countries like China, including potential bans on platforms such as TikTok and Confucius institutes, which is like Japanese institutes, or anything related to Asian institutes. These proposals reflect a significant shift towards conservative policies aiming to reshape various aspects of American governance and society. And for me, when you look at this kind of stuff, it reminds you of what we believe may be happening here. So what it looks like, just like, Mexico used to be a part of America, and then it'd be New Mexico and Texas and all that kind of stuff, and then we became the United States of America and all that stuff. There seems like there may be a renaming of America, because we'll talk about this a little later, but as I'm going to mention later, every 250 years there's a huge change to empires typically. And I think America is going to go from the United States of America to the new America. And I think based on it becoming the new America, they're going to be able to implement a lot more of these. That's why they're implementing these Project 2025 changes. And with that, they're going to be able to create a new constitution. That's why, as of today, you'll even be reminded that they're going for Boston. And what did Boston do? Boston Tea Party and all that. Boston was the first city to fight against the British, to say, this is our land. So they're going to the motherland. They're going to Boston. They're going to try to take back Boston. And Boston said, over my dead body. So let's go to who else influenced Trump outside of Project 2025. Those are the influences of Project 2025. If you want to hear that over, rewind that back, because I think you'll see what I just read. I would say four out of the six of the things have already started happening. So the future vision for America is really based off of this vision, and it is the vision behind Trumpism. So Curtis Yavin, a former software engineer turned political theorist, is one of the most influential intellectuals in the new right movement. Writing under the pseudonym Mendices Moldbug, he developed an ideology that directly challenges democracy, arguing that the United States should abandon its current system in favor of a more centralized autocratic rule, what he calls a corporate monarchy. Though Yarvin himself has never held political office, his ideas have gained traction among tech elites and members of Trump's inner circle. Figures like Peter Thiel, Heritage Foundation, the one who wrote Project 2025, one of Trump's biggest financial backers, have been receptive to his ideas. Guys, if you're in here, please make sure you like the live. That way we can get it to more people. Former Trump administration officials, including Michael Anton, have engaged with his work and has reportedly been in contact with J.D. Vance, a prominent Trump-aligned senator. As you know, he did the Yahtzee salute. He's went over to Germany. He's all about it. J.D. Vance really is about that life right now. Yarvin's vision of governance aligns with the broader authoritarian tendencies emerging in Trump's movement. This also reminds me of something I read about Elon Musk, who is, his father was like a technocrat, I believe it's called, something like that. You guys can look it up. And essentially what that means is they believe people of technology, who have advanced technology degrees and understanding of technologies, are the elite of the world, and they are the ones that should be pushed to the forefront. That's why you see, if you've noticed, there isn't like a big push on white male center, which I think they utilize MAGA for. But if you see, there's a big push on Indian Americans. There is a big push on a lot of Asian countries and things like that, because they are really good with technology and they're really smart with things like that. And that's why they have the HB1 visa, and Trump allows them to come in, because a lot of the Silicon Valley people are here on HB1 visas, which basically allows people with any special skills to usurp the birthright citizenship or any other pathway to citizenship, and they're able to get kind of an amnesty here in the States. So Trump is all about that too, that techism, same as this guy, where he's calling it corporate monarchy. So I would say Trump leans more towards corporate monarchy, and Elon moves more towards the technocrat, because that's what his granddad was. Elon's granddad was a Canadian technocrat, was really smart, and moved to South Africa, got involved in South African apartheid, and got into the government agencies, and the rest is kind of history. This is another Trump mentor. This is Milton Friedman. He was born in July 31st, 1912. He is an economist. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1976 and is a recipient of economic sciences. A leading economic voice in the late 20th century, his theories became known as monetarianism and refute key aspects of Keynesianism economics. Let me see if it lets me. Yeah, this slide works. Ironically, the other slides they weren't working. That's funny, because they were kind of talking a little bit of mess about Elon and Trump, but this one works. So he born July 31st, passed November 16th, 2006. He lived pretty long. And I told you guys that in 1978 he won a Nobel Peace Prize for his research on consumption analysis, monetary history and theory, and the complexity of stabilizing policy. He believed in free market and less government. That was the part I really wanted you guys to know. So he believed more in the power to do things by yourself, no government assistance, and bootstrapping it essentially. He believed that the involvement was a prominent of monetarism, served as an economic advisor to the President Ronald Reagan and several other government officials. The takeaway from him is that he was an American economist who advocated for free market capitalism, meaning you can take as much as you want. There is no such thing as monopoly on things, because a lot of places, like, well, it's not happening now. Like Amazon in the past would be considered a monopoly. You used to be able to say, okay, you can take over in e-commerce, but you can't take over in media. You can take over in media, but you can't take over in oceanic studies. But now, wherever you at, if there's money to be made, you can have a hand in it. And that's what we see with Elon. That's what we see with Jeff Bezos and the likes. You see them becoming more like a conglomerate, where they're monopolizing every facet of society that they can monopolize. And this guy approves that message. He is the founder of monetarism and active monetary policy, where governments control the amount of money in circulation. Friedman helped develop income tax withholding during World War II. Milton Friedman served as the economic advisor to President Richard Nixon and President Ronald Reagan. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1976 in economic studies. So that's where we are going back. Reaganism, Nixonism, and you guys, I implore you to look him up. Again, his name is Milton Friedman. This is another very influential person for Donald J. Trump. Speaking of another loyalist, Kash Patel. If you guys don't know, Kash Patel is now the new FBI director. He was selected recently. He is a former attorney, and it said that he will be the one to release the Epstein files along with the MLK files. He is a extreme in terms of loyalty to Trump. He loves Donald Trump, and you'll often see him on different podcasts around, the YouTube streets, I guess. And because he's a talker, he loves to talk. He's like one of those fast talking Rogan kind of guys and red pill guys. So you know those Andrew Tates. Ironically, he's in that same vein. So if you guys are interested, look up. I would say look at the eyes. The eyes are the window to the soul. Let's have a moment of silence for his eyes. Okay, that's enough. What did they tell you? Okay, all right, I thought so. So also, it is interesting that he owns shares in Shein. I love me some Shein, but you know they say Shein be trying to steal our information and do so. Shein apparently, and he also worked with Qatar. So and he has some relations with the UAE, from what I understand. Let me put my little ticker up because I don't want no problems with this man. He is the new FBI agent. Um, so he also has relations with Qatar as well as the UAE. And if you know how they run things over there, you guys remember what's that girl named Robinson? The girl who just went Jahada Robinson or something. The girl who just went missing. Yeah, they don't play over there. So if that's the case, we ain't gonna be able to play over here either. It's gonna get real serious real fast, and that's kind of the energy around what we're gonna be going with. And he's also worked on defense consultations along with the Czech Republic. So just give you a sense of how this man thinks. The Senate on Thursday narrowly voted to confirm Kash Patel as the director of the FBI, moving to place him atop of the nation's premier federal law enforcement agency, despite doubts from Democrats about his qualifications and concerns that he will do Trump's bidding after the Republican Party president's adversaries. Because he has a list, he has a naughty list like Santa Claus, baby. He has a list. He's checking it twice, and if you on that list, your ass is grass. Sorry, I don't know if I can say that on YouTube. But hopefully he lets me keep that in there because you know he watching. So yes, his yeah, you play with him, play with me. You know I got it. Yeah, he one of those. Patel's lucrative consulting work. Uh, he has an extensive background with a company called Elite Depot, which was one of the most profitable consulting firms in the world. Since founding his firm in 2021, he has earned over $2 million in income. His other clients include Qatar Embassy, like I told you, his Czech defense company that sought to acquire an American ammunition company and manufacturer. He made a deal that faced political scrutiny before ultimately being approved by a multi-agency panel. So he was under seems like political scrutiny for the deal he made re-ammunition. It sounds a little, I'm not gonna say that. I'm about to say it sounds a little somebody buying, like some like buying something a little bit. That's what he in trouble for, ain't it? And he was working with I'm a mind my business. So worked with worked with Qatar, and he says that this is one of the senators who was kind of opposed to it. He said, "I cannot imagine a worse choice." This is Senator Dick Durbin. He told colleagues before the 51-49 votes by the GOP controlled Senate. Again, GOP controlled Senate. Senator Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska were the lone Republicans holding out. Shout out to them for trying, you know. A Trump lawyers list, as I mentioned before, Kash Patel has fiercely criticized the agency. He is an Indian origin. He is from Indian origin, and he will inherit. I don't know why they put that. This was from an article. Why they put it like that? It's kind of shady because you know if it said criticize the agency as a black origin, I would feel offended. So I don't know about that. I don't know what they got to do with the price of tea in China, but I'm assuming what it has to do with is what I told you before: the HB1 visa and how they're allowed to come here, you know, now and kind of usurp the jobs of those MAGA white Americans that y'all know our DEI black cells wasn't gonna get because clearly they don't want us in them jobs. But for the white men who was supposed to get the jobs, they're usurping y'all. They don't want the white man no more. They want the smart Indian man who's gonna come over and do the work, Vivek it all up. You know, that's what they're looking for more. Somebody who just works hard, head down, and do what they say they need to do. That's it. So Patel will inherit an FBI gripped by turmoil as the Justice Department over the past month has forced out a group of senior borough officials and made a highly unusual demand for the names of thousands of agents who participated in investigations related to the January 6, 2021 riot at the Capitol. They're punishing the police officers who punished and the lawyers who punished the January 6 people. Hence, maybe why today Elon dropped those CIA agents' names. So it's all correlated. They're punishing anybody who was previously against the January 6th people. And a lot of the January 6th people from MAGA, they are now in power. So in that way respect, a few of the elite were selected to work with the Trump administration. So maybe as a thank you to Trump, they're going to be a supreme loyalist. Patel has spoken of his desire to implement major changes at the FBI, including a reduced footprint at headquarters in Washington, and there's a renewed emphasis on the Bureau's traditional crime fighting duties rather than the intelligence gathering and national security work that has come to define its mandate over the past 2 decades. But he also echoed Trump's desire for retribution. Patel raised alarms among Democrats for saying before he was nominated that he would come after anti-Trump conspirators in the federal government and in the media. Boom shakalaka. Y'all, you hear that? He said he gonna come. That's that list I was telling you, that Santa Claus list. He's making a list. He's checking it twice. He's gonna find out who's naughty nice. Cash Patel is coming for you. So that's gonna be interesting to watch. Um, and I think we're going to see a lot of things come out. I mentioned earlier the FBI files with Epstein files are coming out. I don't think some people are on there that are not going to come out, of course, but there's going to be some shocking people that are going to be on there. There's going to be some shocking things that come out about some presidents, some information we never knew. And I think we're also going to get some information about MLK and all the people that we probably saw as heroes. They're gonna, because there's no man in the world, no woman in the world that is without sin. So we're gonna find the sins of our fathers. I think they're gonna muck it up a little bit just to show us that, look, there's nobody perfect. And so stop judging Trump. This is from an outsider looking in. This is what they want. And I see the story. I see where they're going with it. Will it work? Only time will tell. And will he be successful? Because I did hear that, like they said earlier, instead of using intelligence, because what the FBI does now is they collect information, they collect intelligence, and then they make their move. That way, like when people said about Diddy, by the time you're arrested and the FBI coming to get you, they got all the information they need. They don't need nothing else. He's doing it the other way. They're going deep dive first, head first, and then they'll find out later. Like they're gonna try to go in attack, so they're gonna do UFC training. They're gonna be more out in the field, more forceful, more aggressive. That's why I say the 92%, baby. Stay your butts home. Stay your behinds home, honey. Because we don't want none of that smoke. So they're gonna be more act first, think later, versus how the FBI is now. It's literally think now, act years and years later. Like, and so by the time we get you, we catch it by the toe kind of situation. That's how they are now. That's how they were, and that's gonna be a completely, totally different shift once Cash Patel settles in. So we'll see what happens. But one thing I did like about what he did was he pushed back on um Elon and his yuppies at Doge and said, I can't give my people information to you because we are the FBI. We are a private agency who has confidential files. So cool off on that. I'm sure he talked to Trump, like, and probably told Trump this, and it makes sense because I did hear Trump say in their briefing, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We'll talk about that next. Trump said in the briefing, oh, there's some people who has exceptions, but for the most part, those people who are asked to give me a response by Monday needs to give me a response by Monday. So by Monday, March 3rd, there's going to be even more layoffs of any person who has not responded to those Doge emails that Elon and his consortment sent out. So, all right, next up, let's talk about it. Yes, baby, the boiler room of it all. Now, this is a juicy. I thought this was going to be the highlight of the week. There's been a lot going on in my Black history, but oh, I'm exhausted. And we halfway through. But child, and we've been on for already an hour and a half. Again, please like the chat. I put in a lot of love, a lot of work in today's podcast for you guys. because there was just so much information out there and I wanted to break it down in small chunks that were digestible. So I hope I'm doing a great job. If you agree, please be sure to like this chat, and also the replay crew, if you're listening later, make sure you like the video so it can get to other like-minded people like yourself. So let's jump right into the boiler room of it all, right? Trump held his first White House briefing with his chief of staff, along with the media, to answer questions. Elon was the star of the show. He jokingly discussed him being the tech support and that any cuts were made with the direction of Donald Trump. Elon says that he's determined to cut the fat, and with confidence, he feels he's going to help the American people get out of their debt. There is a clip that I wish I would have grabbed of Donald Trump looking down in defeat as Elon's talking. He did not enjoy Elon talking. Elon took the floor a little bit too aggressively. I think he should have just, I don't know if he should have stood up because nobody else stood up. He could have just stayed seating and just said what he had to say. But I think the fact that he stood up, wanted to be seen, did the whole superhero Clark Kent shirt thing, and I don't think Trump is really feeling that. But also at the same time, Trump is amused by him, so he lets him be. But it was very contentious in the room. A lot of questions from the reporters. He was very, Trump was very kind of dismissive. Of course, that's what he does to certain um women who were journalists and asking questions. And he's like, oh boy, one woman, he said, oh, didn't you already ask me that twice? I thought I gave you the answer. Move on. Like, oh yeah, this guy, he's something else. So it was very tense in the room. It was very white. There was one black man, he did. He kissed the ring and did a prayer. He did a little shaking job. He said, then he go, oh, you are so, my little Negro, you are so smart. So I did see that. But it was really cringe. Speaking of his little blacks, the blacks, let's talk about them. So Trump did hold a Black History Month reception, which, I mean, that is just so, I don't even have the word. It was awkward because this is right after going ham, cutting the fat, as he calls it, of all the DEI program that apparently are supposed to benefit the blacks, but we know they really benefit generally white women. So that was really hard to watch because, like, just a week ago, you have all these companies coming out in support of Donald Trump and him cutting out programs that, I will give you one that did help black people. So there was there's something called the Black Engineers of America, and there are these beautiful, talented black engineers that don't get recognition because, if you know, I used to work in the engineering field. If you know anything about engineers, it's really hard for black ones to be there. They're usually the only ones in the office. So it's hard for them to get a lot of recognition. And so what DEI allow for is for companies to be intentional about going to those black engineering conferences. And that's just one example. I'm sure there's other examples of that. I'm sure there's black accounting firms. I'm sure there's black real estate firms. I'm sure there's black farming companies and such and such and such, right? Black journalism companies and forums. And these companies were allotted a budget to go recruit from those places. And it's not just for black people. This is Asian, because there's Latino engineering companies. There's Asian engineering companies. There's one called PWC, which is for women in construction, right? So there are a lot of different agencies like that, and those are all funded by different companies, and they get grants, and they are also given sponsorships by different companies to maintain, their sponsorships. And that's how they get their money, from corporations. And so now that the corporation don't have to set aside a budget for those things, which means they don't have to recruit women, they don't have to recruit the blacks, they don't have to recruit Asians or Latinos and things like that. So that leaves like an engineering company with only nothing but the brightest of the whitest. So that in and of itself is a little bit sad. But back to Trump in the White House. So he invited the blacks to the White House for Black History Month, and now this is a genuine nod to history, or was this just an empty gesture? Meanwhile, let's talk about Dr. King's real message. Toward the end of his life, MLK pushed economic justice just as hard as racial equality. He saw that true libertarianism meant black economic party power, not just integration, but blacks also needed ownership. Something to think about as we close out the end of the month, this Black History Month. tr- at the end of his life, MLK no longer was this docile, sweet guy who wanted just equality. He wanted economic power. He wanted to push black people into liberation and figured the only way to do that is for us by us. For us by us at FUBU to have our own. So these are kind of why I think those files are going to come out from Cash Patel about MLK so that they can sully his name, so that if there is a big push from Black America to start releasing things in terms of like the real MLK, there will be that backlash from his MAGA troops saying, yeah, but look what all the stuff that Cash Patel put out about him. He's actually, MLK is not a good man. And they just want to sully him up. Name a black person in the media that they haven't sullied. Every black person that's ever been famous, there is some type of darkness around them. And that, my dear, is intentional. He did mention during the Black History Month visit, Trump pulled out a name even some historians had to Google. Someone named Prince Estabrook, an enslaved man who fought in the Revolutionary War. And I had to go look this up because I was like, who is this guy? I've never heard of him. I've heard of Crispus Attucks, which I think we've all heard of, right? And Crispus Attucks, from my knowledge, was the first black person to pass away in the war. And so when he was talking about this Prince guy, I said, what the heck? Who is this? And I think he brought him up because he wanted to let us know about somebody a little bit more docile and about a little bit more weak. Because Crispus Attucks, the difference is, oh, sorry, let me go back to it. Although Atticus Although much attention is paid to Crispus Attucks, who died during the 1707 Boston Massacre, the first African American to take up arms and fight in the Revolutionary War, he was a slave in his youth and was known simply. The other one was a slave and known simply as Prince. And the difference between Crispus Attucks and Prince is Crispus Attucks died for the American people. He was the first one to die, and Prince lived. And Prince also was very cool with white people. He was able to get land, and he had horses and ownership. And I think that's the story. That's the story Trump wants to tell. He doesn't want to tell about the black man who died on this soil, the first person in America who died on this soil for America. He doesn't want to talk about that, right? He wants to talk about the one. So, and also Crispus Attucks was a civilian. So that's you and me. That's you and me, baby. We ain't in the military. We're not. Da, da, da. I'm Sergeant's daughter. That's when my daddy was in the military, but I'm not. And so he was just a regular civilian. Whereas Prince was an actual soldier. So he was the first soldier of African American descent that passed away. And Crispus Attucks was the first person, period, who died. Okay, and that's why he wanted to mention Prince Estabrook. Prince didn't die. Prince lived, and he also had a beautiful life in America. He lived essentially the American dream, and I think that's what they want you to focus on. They want you to focus on the positive of slavery. Oxymoron much, but that's what it is. That's why he mentioned Prince instead of Crispus Attucks, because Crispus died for this country like a lot of blacks have, bled for this country like a lot of blacks have. But meanwhile, Prince lived. He was able to acquire land, able to make friendships with white people, and he had a pretty successful life, and he lived for a pretty long time. So that's why Trump mentioned this guy. So if you want, look into him, but we know this guy is also a Prince Estabrook, and that's what he wants us to focus on. Don't focus on the negative of slavery. Focus on all the benefits that you blacks got out of slavery, and that's the bottom line of why he brought this person up. Speaking of a blacks who got some benefits from being associated with Donald Trump, Byron Donalds, he is up for governor. And Governor DeSantis in Florida is pushing back. And although Byron Donalds has Trump's endorsement, and that may be beneficial. I don't think Byron Donalds is going to win Florida. Florida is an extremely uh pro-white place where they have their ways about themselves. Think about Trayvon Martin, and you can go back and you can read the stand your ground laws, and you can just like read, you if you know Florida, if you know America, you know Florida. So Florida is very like its own world. So I don't see a black man taking over. And in the history, I believe there's only been about 6 black governors in its entirety in all of America. So it's good. That's going to be a hard buy for Florida. But with Trump's endorsement, if he does win, that will be interesting, and that will be the biggest benefit that Byron Donalds has gotten from backing Trump. So we shall see. But Governor DeSantis, his goal is to have his wife Casey DeSantis run, who she's already in office. In a couple of months, his lieutenant governor is stepping down, and his wife is going to become the lieutenant governor. So he feels like that would be just an easy, smooth transition for his wife to become the lieutenant governor, which really will be a de facto way for him to become the governor again for another 8 years. So we'll see what the Florida people do. It's going to be one to watch. I tell you, if you're interested in politics, this is just one to watch. I don't have a dog in this fight. Um, Trump has also, I just wanted to mention quickly, Trump also endorsed Vivek Ramaswamy this week for his governor bid for Ohio. So we'll also see how that goes. And we'll see if Elon is going to manipulate that election, as people are jokingly saying, or if it will be straight and people are going to come out and vote against it. So we shall see. But in terms of the Democrats that, and more blacks that are also kind of fighting for the system, and people of color, I just want to give a quick shout out to this beautiful, beautiful chocolate sister right here, Jasmine Crockett. She, to me, is a part. You want to talk about New America? She is on the forefront of that. The new Democratic Party. I think she's refreshing. They need to put her out there more. I really hope that she becomes the leader that we know she can be. Jasmine Crockett is a Democratic U.S. representative for Texas' 30th Congressional District since 2023. Crockett is a former civil rights attorney and a state legislator who champions voting rights, criminal justice reform, and economic equity. Known for her outspoken personality and sharp legal mind, she has quickly made a name for herself in Congress by pushing back against right-wing attacks and advocating for marginalized communities in Texas and beyond. Standing up fighting triple minorities, standing up and fighting. She's a triple minority. She's a woman, she's black, and she is one of the only one, and she's one of, I believe, 55 in Congress, one of the first. It's not a lot in Congress that are black women. She's always had a winning majority mindset. She says the best way to stopping Trump, she believes, is in the House. She said the Senate math is not their strength, but if one or two calls out or gets sick, they can flip over a vote. So if you don't try, you don't win. That is her motto. I'm rooting for her, and I just want to give a round of applause for everything she's been doing. I mean, beautifully, articulate. I know we hate that. She speaks so well. She's so well spoken, but it's so true, and it just has been a joy and a pleasure to watch her do her thing. Do your thing, shorty. So next up, of course, I wanted to give a beautiful shout out to Miss AOC herself, the Bronx native. New York. If you're a Jersey girl, you know. So also a new contributor to the new Democratic Party is what I'm calling it. They haven't coined this. Is what I'm calling it. Um, and we need this. We need the AOCs. We need the Jasmine Crockett. Another beautiful person of color. She's a Puerto Rican. Shout out to her. A Democratic U.S. representative for New York's 14th congressional district since 2019. AOC is known for her progressive policy, advocacy for working class Americans, and strong stance on climate change, healthcare, and social justice. A former bartender from the Bronx, she gained national attention after defeating a longtime incumbent in the 2018 Democratic primary, and has since been a leading voice in the progressive movement. Shout out to AOC. Continue to do your thing, shorty. I just saw her talking the other day, and she just had this beautiful speech outside, talking to her constituents and saying that she's going to be a voice. There was also a big uproar because she went against one of the oldest sitting members in leaders in the Democratic Party and lost, unfortunately. But he's like 80 something years old, and they thought he should have stepped down for her because she's a breath of fresh air, along with Hakeem Jeffries, but who's people are kind of not liking him either because they feel like he's a little bit of a Nancy Pelosi trope in that same realm. But AOC and Jasmine Crockett, breath of fresh air. And I'm hoping that if that guy does hit the bucket, then they will be confident enough and have the courage to put AOC as the leader of the Democratic Party, because she really has what it takes. Special elections coming up. I wanted to tell you guys about this. So in March, coming up, there's March, and I think the July, there's some coming up. In one spot opening in New York City, there's going to be 2 seats opening in Florida. So look out for those if you are in New York City or if you are in Florida. The elections that we keep missing. Let me tell you, did you know that there are at least 7 elections happening every year? Not just presidential ones, federal elections. Every 2 to 4 years, there's an election for the president, House, and Senate. State elections happen every 4 years for your mayor and things like that. State and legislation and local elections for your judges and things like that are constantly rotating, so keep an eye out for those. Primaries, depending on who makes it to the final ballot, are, oh, those are the big ones. Those are primaries for Democrats or Republicans. That determines who makes it to your ballot. That happens as well. So you have to keep on a constant rotation. So you have to keep a lookout for that. And also another important one is school board election. That decides what your kids are learning. And those happen usually every September or right before September. So keep an eye out for those. And those are also every year. So look out for those as well. And unfortunately, even with these constant elections that are going on, turnout is low in these local races. If y'all only showing up every 4 years for the president, we're really playing ourselves. If you want help in finding your next, when the next election is in your city or state, just drop your city and state in the comments, and I'll help you find out when your next election is, because we have to get out there. We have to vote. Speaking of having us be out there, put ourselves out there, Miss Joy. I wanted to shout her out because what a beautiful life, right? I know with this uproar and them kicking her out of the MSNBC of it all, she is still standing. She had a meeting in a safe black space that she was crying on, and everybody tried to, shade her for it. But with the cancellation of Joy Reid show, she did an interview in a safe space with Win with Black. She thought it was safe, but somebody leaked the Zoom, and in it they sent out an email, and I'm on their email chain, and you guys should get on it too. Is they had a whole list of actionables. I'm going to go over just a few of them, but if you can, just make sure you follow her everywhere. I have all her listings here. Joy Reid on Blue Sky, Joy Reid official on TikTok, Joy and Reid on Instagram, so on and so forth. You see it, follow that. She also has a podcast that I've been watching for about a month. It's been out for about 4 months, and I've been just enjoying it. And so that means she kind of knew this was coming down the pipeline. It's called Read This, Read That. It's her with another woman, Ann or Jasmine Reid. I can't remember her name. But she was also, her face is familiar too. My mom, when she saw it, she said, I remember her, but I don't remember her that well. But it's another Reid girl. And her and Joy Reid do a podcast together. And I imagine Joy is going to create her own separate individual podcast, akin to Don Lemon, because Don Lemon, he out here killing it in these streets. He doing amazing. He was the first to be let go. So Joy on the podcast Read This, Read That, she mentioned that Melissa Harris Perry, y'all remember her? I used to love her. I thought I was Melissa Harris Perry's honey. That's why we doing this. She quit because she wasn't treated well from MSNBC, and then Joy Reid was brought in to take like one of her slides. So you see how karma works? And when people tell you who they are, believe them. The news includes a list of the newsletter that I was telling you guys that the Win with Black Women, they sent out a newsletter. It's a bunch of actionable, honey. I took just a one of the actions. They said uh it says the newsletter includes a list of action items to help raise Joy's voice. For more information, sign up to with Win with Black Women. I also want to create my own email chain, so I will be working with that. So in the next couple of maybe weeks, give me a couple of weeks, I'll be able to set up my own email chain, because I want to guys keep in contact. Should any of these platforms be shut down, at least I have a place to house you guys for myself outside of these social media platforms. But neither here nor there. So we want to send power to lift her voice on social media. The instructions is to flood the timelines with our support for Joy and demand accountability from MSNBC. Use hashtags We Need Joy, TV Off, and Win with Black Women. Use your power to post graphics, videos, and statements amplifying Joy's impact. Share your favorite the readout moments and remind the world why Reid is essential. I already did this on my TikTok. If you guys go, I just posted a little love letter to Joy Reid. We have included some social media assets for you to amplify. Here's a sample post. Black women are unstoppable no matter the obstacles. Joy Ann Reid has been a trailblazer, a truth teller, and a force in journalism, amplifying voices, speaking the truth to power, and making history along the way. We need Joy. Win with Black women. That could be one post. Post two. Joy, we see you. We celebrate you. We are watching the readout, and then TV off. We stand with you in an unwavering solidarity. We need Joy. Win with Black women. So make sure y'all are putting that out. Hashtag we need Joy. Hashtag TV off. Hashtag win with Black women. Turn the TV off. Turn the TV off. Turn the TV off. Turn the TV off. Speaking of, let's go through who else. It wasn't just Joy that was impacted by these recent layoffs at MSNBC. So Rachel Maddow did react to the changes at MSNBC. She had a nice speech about Joy. It's one that could technically risk her job, so I truly respect her for it. But again, like I said, Joy wasn't the only one that was let go of. Joy, along with other co-hosts, including This Is Joy, she was let go. And then we have Alex Wagner will no longer host 9 p.m. hour from Tuesday to Thursdays. We have Katie Fang, who hosts a weekend show on MSNBC, will be reassigned within the network, which will no longer air on her program. We have Amen Mossadin's show, who was also given the boot, unfortunately. We have Jose Diaz, a weekday program that will now be reassigned within the network. He's let go as well. Mr. Jonathan Capehart, you guys remember him. He will no longer host a show on the weekends. His program was a casualty of MSNBC's overhaul. And last but not least, Mr. Lester Holtz. You guys know Lester. Lester, not Lester. But apparently, Lester is retiring. After 10 years, he's the latest to leave their position as television news adjusts to changing audience habits. So they calling it. AKA, no more DEIs. Get y'all black folk out of here. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, poor Lester. So, but he's fine. He did an interview with the British president yesterday. I saw he asked some hard hitting questions. So he enjoyed. He's going out with a bang, and he'll be fine. And I'm sure he has other things lined up. I hear he's also going to be hosting like another show that's just like kind of just not this particular position, but he's going to be hosting something else just as like comparable. So he'll be fine. But he is leaving his current position and he's retiring right now. So it may be a good thing for him. But yes, those are all the anchors that are leaving. As you can see, all POCs. And Joy is the one getting the backlash because you know they love to talk about us, honey. You know, what they talking about? They ain't talking about nothing. But she is not the only one. Next up, just remember, it's the same script, different cast. The shift is happening. And as I mentioned last time, America is at 248 years old. History tells us empires shift around 250 years. We are in the shift right now, economically, politically, socially, Everything is moving fast. Some are fighting to hold on to old power structures, and others are waking up and realizing that change is inevitable. I want you guys to remember that we aren't first, we aren't next, we were first. We aren't next, we were first. We been there, we done that, we got the t-shirt. And don't you forget about it. Because they're gonna try to scare you and make you feel like this is new, but we not new to this. We true to this. We the 92%, you know, and we tried to tell y'all. We tried to tell y'all. Honey, we tried. We tried. Tried. We tried to tell y'all. Hey, hey, hey. Said we tried. We tried to tell y'all. Hey. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. I got my Cash App there. Sorry, I had a little cough episode after that little song and dance. So the wrap up. Let's wrap this up. Yes, the United States of scissor, because that's the only America I recognize. So I just wanted to give you guys just another reminder. That's my Cash App. If you guys want to support me there. For business inquiries, if you have any questions or comments or anything you don't want to put on these social media sites, you can send me an email at prettypolitico444. That's my lucky number. That's my dad, the Sarge, who I'm always talking about, in my month, his year, at gmail.com. So prettypolitico444 at gmail.com. Also, I'm on these other platforms as well. I'm on YouTube, Blue Sky. I have an Etsy page with a few t-shirts on there. If you want to grab a 92% t-shirt, go to my Etsy shop. It is there. And I'm also on TikTok, which I love TikTok. And I'm having a good time on Blue Sky. I just be tweeting up a storm. So you guys are want to kind of get me daily and weekly more often, a little bit more, you can TikTok and Blue Sky is where I'm at. I pop into YouTube as needed, but I'm doing my best. I'm letting God do the rest. Hopefully I can show up more frequently, but for right now, as you guys can see, these are very detailed YouTubes, so podcasts. So I hope you guys are enjoying this episode today. I'm really enjoying myself. So the wrap up, our next move is our best move. So what is our next move? We need to stay educated, read, research, question everything. We need to stay strategic. Pick your battles wisely. You need to build your own businesses, networks, financial security. Protect your peace. Drink your tea, light your candles, and mind your business. And your energy. Mind your energy too. That's the most important one. Because at the end of the day, the revolution will not be televised. It will not be socialized. It will happen in the decisions that you make every single day. And I hope one decision that you made today is to join that 24-hour economic blackout, baby. Today, I ain't buying not a dang on thing. I spent my hours with y'all today, and I have enjoyed you. So remember, Friday, February 28th, 2025, from midnight to midnight, from pillar to post, from sun up to sundown, from dawn to dusk. No corporate spending, no gas, no fast food, no DoorDash, no Target, no Walmart, no nada. Go eat some Ben and Jerry's. This is where we start. We turn the TV off. Turn the TV off. We turn it off, baby. For one day, we show them who has the power. Power to the people. And I'm going to leave you guys there. Here are my closing thoughts. You guys made it through to this far. Put a little voting emoji in the comments. Vote. I want you guys to vote. Closing thoughts, good news, and action steps. Before we go, let's end on a high note. The good news is there are people fighting the good fight every day. People are pushing for change, protecting rights, and keeping history alive. We are not alone. So here's your to-do list. support Black businesses, take care of yourself and your health and your wealth, build your knowledge base, and make sure you register to vote. Just a reminder, 7 or more elections are held annually in the United States. These elections include federal elections for the president and Congress, which have 2-year terms, and state elections for House and Senate, which also have 2-year terms. Additionally, there are local elections for school boards and other state level positions. Like I told you before, if you guys need to know where to go and when your state is voting, if you leave a comment, I can provide you with a list of local elections in your city and state. But that's it for this episode, y'all. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you've made it here, leave that little election box in the comments below. That's it for this episode of Pretty Politico. Stay sharp, stay ready, stay unmovable. Until next time, y'all, that's your girl, Nico Nicole, and you are politicking with Nico. Thank you so much. I enjoyed myself. I hope y'all enjoyed yourself. I'll see you in the next streams. All right, you guys have a beautiful weekend, and we had a great Black History Month. Shout out to us. Power to the people.